First of all, I'm not dating Kevin Costner. I've known Kevin Costner for probably 30 years, and I think if we haven't dated so far, we're probably not going to. I am hot. That's the part of the story that's correct.
What did Sharon Stone just confirm at 66? That is everyone talking. It's not a rumor anymore. It's real. And once you hear what she said on the record, you may never look at her the same way again. Because behind the flashing cameras, iconic roles, and magazine covers was a childhood secret, a hidden wound, and a level of genius the world wasn't ready for. If you've only known Sharon Stone as a silver screen seductress, buckle up. This story starts long before Basic Instinct. It begins in a small town, and it starts with a girl no one really understood. Let's take you back to Meadville, Pennsylvania. Sharon Von Stone was born March 10th, 1958, one of 4 children, daughter to Dorothy, an accountant, and Joseph, a tool and die maker. Modest beginnings, tight quarters, not a hint of Hollywood in sight. But even as a toddler, she was different. At just 11 months old, Sharon began talking, walking, processing. By age 5, she was already reading complex books. Teachers didn't know what to do with her. Other kids, they couldn't relate to her at all. And by the time her IQ was tested, it stunned everyone. 154. Gifted. Off the charts. She wasn't just smart. She was a genius. But it came at a cost. Sharon didn't fit in. Not in school. Not in playgrounds. Not at home. Her brilliance made her a target. The teasing, the whispers, the labels. Know-it-all weird, awkward. Even among her own siblings, she stood out. Not always in a way that felt good. And while many girls her age were playing with dolls or sneaking lip gloss into school, Sharon buried herself in books. She was drawn to literature, to ideas, to stories beyond her hometown. But even stories couldn't protect her from reality. And Sharon's reality wasn't just difficult, it was dangerous. The full truth wouldn't come out until decades later. But the silence of those years says everything. Now here's where it gets even more intense. Even in that emotional isolation, she accelerated. By 15, she graduated high school. She was already in college before most girls her age had taken their driver's test. She enrolled at Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania on scholarship, studying creative writing and fine arts. But being the youngest in her classes didn't make things easier. She still felt alone, out of place, like a ghost drifting through lecture halls. What's ironic is that Sharon Stone, the woman who would later become a symbol of raw, commanding presence on screen, grew up never feeling seen. Not really. And just when you think that early chapter couldn't get heavier, there's a moment that would alter her physical reality for years to come. At 14, she tried to break a horse. The animal bucked, charged. She was thrown violently, striking a clothesline that wrapped around her neck. The injury was severe. Doctors feared long-term complications. And Sharon? She just kept going, quietly, like always. Now stop and imagine this. You're a teenager recovering from a neck injury, surviving a world that doesn't understand you, pushing through social alienation and financial hardship, and somehow you still dream of more. You still want out. But what would it take for someone like Sharon, awkward, brilliant, invisible, to find her way to the top? That answer didn't come from academics or college degrees. It came from something completely unexpected, a beauty pageant. She didn't even think she'd win, but she did. And for the first time, the world clapped for her. Not her brain, not her grades, but her. Her presence, her face, her charm. That crown became her passport, because what came next wasn't just a trophy, it was a one-way ticket out of Meadville. Modeling offers followed fast. New York agencies started calling. And when the legendary Ford modeling agency signed her, everything changed. She went from modest homes to Manhattan skyscrapers, from local newspapers to the covers of fashion magazines. Sharon Stone, once the invisible genius, was suddenly being seen everywhere. But let's pause here. Modeling gave her money, stability. By the mid-1980s, she was earning thousands per shoot, sometimes more than her father had made in months. It was her first financial freedom, her first taste of independence. And yet, something wasn't right. Despite the fame, the flash, the cash, Sharon felt something was missing. Modeling made her visible, but not known. And that need to be understood, to be expressive, to tell real stories was starting to pull at her soul. She didn't just want to look the part. She wanted to play it. So she made a bold decision. She started taking acting classes, studying scripts, watching legends. She was trading runways for auditions, and that meant starting from the very bottom again. Small roles came, barely speaking lines, background parts. She worked in near anonymity while other models partied on yachts. But Sharon wasn't chasing luxury. She was chasing legacy. Still, the grind was brutal. The film industry wasn't waiting for her. But neither was she backing down, because Sharon Stone had learned from an early age, when the world tells you who you are, you don't argue. You just prove them wrong. What came next would blow the doors open. It involved one director, one role, and one scene that would make her unforgettable. But before that moment, there was another twist, a revelation that would take her story from inspiring to haunting. And it's something no Hollywood role could prepare her for. Stay with us, because in the next chapter, the truth she spent years hiding finally surfaces. And the woman the world thought they knew turns out to be someone else entirely. Breakthrough and betrayal. From the modeling world's polished edges to the unpredictable chaos of casting rooms, Sharon Stone had entered a new arena, and Hollywood didn't play fair. In the beginning, she was barely noticed. Her name appeared in credits only if you waited until the end. Her roles were forgettable, the kind critics skipped over. But behind every one-line part, Sharon was building something deeper. Craft, confidence, control. She wasn't chasing overnight fame. She was preparing for the moment she'd no longer have to introduce herself. Then came Basic Instinct. It wasn't just a film, it was a firestorm. Released in 1992, the psychological thriller stunned audiences. The role of Catherine Trammell demanded more than beauty. It required danger, charisma, and ice-cold precision. Many actresses turned it down, but Sharon Stone said yes. She didn't just play the role, she became it. And almost overnight, Sharon went from a working actress to a global icon. The film grossed over $352 million worldwide, instantly catapulting her into A-list status. It wasn't just a hit, it was a financial juggernaut. Studios scrambled to cash in on her momentum. Sharon was no longer chasing roles. They were chasing her. But here's what the public didn't see. Behind that breakout performance was a moment that would haunt her for decades. A moment on set that crossed a line. Sharon would later reveal in interviews that the infamous interrogation scene was not what she expected. She hadn't consented to everything the audience ultimately saw. According to her own words, she only found out what was captured when she watched the final cut in a screening room, surrounded by executives. Shocked, humiliated, betrayed. And yet, she didn't walk away. Why? Because Sharon knew something few others did. The film would change everything. And she was right. But that decision, the one to stay silent, to not challenge what happened in that moment, left a scar. A deep one. And it wouldn't be the last time she'd have to choose between survival and speaking up. Still, in the years following Basic Instinct, Sharon built a financial empire. She became one of the highest-paid actresses in the industry. By the mid-1990s, her per-film salary reportedly reached $6 to $8 million, with back-end bonuses boosting her total earnings well into 8 figures. She invested smartly, branching into real estate, endorsements, and production. But with greater fame came new challenges, some subtle, others brutal. For one, she wasn't just seen as talented. She was labeled the Ice Queen, the femme fatale, a woman with mystery, allure, and danger. It was branding that sold tickets but limited roles. Casting directors, fixated on that one archetype, often overlooked her range. Sharon pushed back, took dramatic parts, did indie films, fought for stories that mattered. One of those stories, Casino. Martin Scorsese's 1995 epic gave Sharon a role she could finally sink her teeth into. Ginger McKenna was messy, tragic, powerful, and vulnerable all at once. It was a career-defining performance, and it earned her a Golden Globe win and an Academy Award nomination. But once again, even at the height of artistic success, something darker crept in. In private, Sharon was beginning to suffer from mysterious health issues. Exhaustion, confusion, physical symptoms that didn't add up. Doctors couldn't explain it. The industry whispered about burnout, even instability. But Sharon kept going. And then came the day that changed everything. It was 2001, a regular morning. Sharon was in her home when she suddenly collapsed. A searing pain in her head, followed by darkness. She had suffered a massive brain hemorrhage. The bleeding lasted 9 days. Doctors gave her a 1% chance of survival. When she woke up in the hospital, everything had changed. Her speech was slurred. Her memory was fractured. She couldn't walk properly. She had to relearn how to write, how to communicate, how to function. Hollywood didn't wait. While Sharon fought to survive, the phone calls stopped. The offers dried up. She went from headlining box office hits to being told she was uninsurable. One studio executive even told her outright, "We can't risk casting someone who might not make it to the premiere." Her income plummeted. Brand deals vanished. Even her real estate holdings, once a source of financial security, had to be sold or refinanced to cover the cost of her care. It was a crash, not just of health, but of reputation. And through it all, she was fighting another battle, one even more personal. During this time, Sharon was engaged in a painful custody battle for her adopted son, Roan. The court, citing her medical condition, ruled against her. The emotional toll was devastating. She once said in an interview, "I lost everything. My career, my family, my place in the world." But Sharon didn't give up. Slowly, painfully, she rebuilt. She focused on physical therapy, speech recovery, mindfulness, and for the first time in her career, she stepped back, not by choice but by survival. Still, there were flickers of hope. Bit parts turned into cameos into recurring roles. She appeared in series like Law and Order, SVU, and Ratched, proving that her talent hadn't faded. It had matured, deepened. Off-screen, she leaned into philanthropy. From her early involvement with AIDS charities to her vocal support for stroke survivors, Sharon used her platform for more than publicity. She raised millions of dollars for research, education, and housing initiatives. She gave back, even as she continued healing. And here's the twist. The woman who was once mocked as too smart, too intense, too much, became a beacon for those very traits. She wasn't just admired for her beauty anymore. She was respected for her resilience. Still, even after the comeback, there was one more revelation, one she had kept buried for decades. And when she finally said it out loud, the world stopped. You want to hear this next part because what she shared wasn't just brave. It was a warning, a confession, and a cry for accountability in an industry that often forgets the cost of survival. The confession and the comeback. She waited decades to say it out loud. And when she finally did, it wasn't on a movie set or in a magazine interview. It was in her own words, in a memoir that would tear the veil off one of Hollywood's most elusive icons. The Beauty of Living Twice, published in 2021, was Sharon Stone's way of reclaiming her voice. But buried in the pages, amid stories of resilience, love, and survival, was a revelation that no one saw coming. In a chapter that left readers stunned, Sharon described an event from her childhood that had haunted her for years, abuse she suffered at the hands of her maternal grandfather. For decades, she had suppressed the memories. They came back not on a red carpet or in therapy sessions, but like fragments of a broken mirror, sharp, painful, and impossible to ignore. She didn't write about it to shock. She wrote about it to heal. And in doing so, she gave permission to countless others to speak their truths. It was more than a celebrity confession. It was a generational release of silence. But this wasn't the only revelation that drew headlines. For the first time, Sharon also confirmed the full details behind what happened on the set of Basic Instinct. Not just the betrayal in the editing room, but the power dynamics, the manipulation, and the choice she made to protect her career at the cost of her comfort. She revealed that she'd been pressured to perform scenes under false pretenses, that decisions made by others had altered the course of her life, that in an industry obsessed with control, she had learned that silence often came with a paycheck and speaking up could cost everything. And still, she refused to play the victim. Sharon Stone didn't write a memoir to point fingers. She wrote it to build bridges, to reclaim her power, to say, "This happened, I survived, and now I'm telling my story." The book was a critical success. It earned praise for its honesty, its vulnerability, and its refusal to conform to the polished narratives so many expect from celebrity memoirs. Sales soared. Pre-orders and audiobook downloads surged across major platforms, including Audible and Amazon, giving the project significant financial legs. According to publishing analysts, the memoir contributed to a spike in midlife celebrity titles, with Stone's raw style becoming the new gold standard. And yet, even with her story out in the open, Sharon wasn't done making waves. In recent interviews, she began speaking out about the way women, especially women over 50, are treated in Hollywood. She shared how, after her stroke, she was considered damaged goods, how she lost not just roles, but relevance, as if her value was tied solely to youth and beauty. She recalled meetings where male producers refused to look her in the eye, offers that dried up, and the slow, painful realization that a woman's expiration date in Hollywood was set by others, not by her. So what did Sharon do? She built her own narrative. She started producing, writing, speaking at global conferences. She partnered with women-led media initiatives and lent her voice to platforms promoting gender equity in the arts. In 2022, she signed on to executive produce a documentary focused on empowering female filmmakers, a move that gave her more creative control and long-term back-end profit. No longer content to be just a face on the screen, Sharon became the architect of her own legacy. And it wasn't just about movies anymore. Behind the scenes, Sharon had been quietly expanding her business ventures. From luxury real estate to early-stage tech investing, she had learned how to make her money work for her. Reports indicate that her real estate holdings in Beverly Hills, New York, and abroad are worth over $18 million, with several properties bringing in passive rental income. She also became a sought-after keynote speaker, with appearance fees in the six-figure range, especially at women's leadership events, philanthropy summits, and neurological health conferences. Her personal brand had evolved, no longer just the sex symbol of the 90s, but a thought leader on resilience, identity, and recovery. And then came her biggest surprise of all. During a casual red carpet interview in 2024, Sharon confirmed something that left fans speechless. She had quietly adopted 2 more sons, completing her family without fanfare or media spectacle. This wasn't about publicity. It was about love. Stone explained that she wanted to give them a life that mirrored the stability she had once longed for herself. A home filled with music, books, creativity, and above all, truth. She now lives a relatively quiet life away from the chaos of LA, spending her time between California and a European villa she purchased in Italy. Yet another investment that's appreciated significantly in value, estimated at $4.2 million today. From being a small-town girl branded as too smart and too different, to becoming a global movie star, a survivor of life-altering trauma, and an advocate for justice. Sharon Stone's journey isn't just one of fame. It's one of transformation. And through all of it, every rise, every fall, she's done something many in her position never dared to: tell the truth. Her legacy now stands on more than movie posters or gossip headlines. It rests on something far more powerful: authenticity. Because the real shock isn't what Sharon Stone revealed. It's that in an industry built on illusion, she chose reality. And perhaps that's the boldest move of all.